Hi guys, this is Will at Cedardale Communications. Hope you're all doing great. Today we're going to talk about confidence. Now, how do you increase it or how do you build it? Maybe it's something that you feel you lack and it's something you want to work on. Confidence can be a major difference maker in your life, and it can also affect the way people look at you, people respect you. We always think about when we're looking at people who get a lot of respect, you always think about the bad boy, the confident person, the general, the president. You run out and you have no fear, and you compare it to the nice guy, the guy who just gets passed up, the guy who nobody ever listens to, but he's good enough. When you're confident, you're able to get the job. You're able to get the girl, the date that you've always been wanting to. You're able to attract the man you want because they see that little kind of spark in you. And more than anything, you earn respect. Now, what you really have to keep in mind is that the process is relatively easy of how to build that confidence. And I'm speaking to you as a person who used to be a massive introvert. I was afraid of the world, and I always used to sit back and watch things happen. I'm going to tell you in a minute if that's your situation where you're a person who's more on the shy side. I'm going to tell you why that's something that actually is a bonus for you. It's something that will give you an advantage over the extrovert. And if you're more of a gregarious person, the extrovert that likes to talk to everyone and who finds it really easily to sort of connect with people, this may also apply to you. I would suggest, more than anything, always take a breather and think a little bit more before you're going to formulate your thoughts and your arguments in general. Now, I would say to get started, or even before we get started, I would say make sure that you work on things like these, because it's not a thing out of nastiness, but people who are really experienced, people who are more out there, leaders, and just people all in general, even yourself, you might do that from time to time. But when you identify people's weaknesses, it's something that you'll exploit naturally because you'll find the path of least resistance. You'll be able to, move on in. So the number one tip I would say is be respectful, but also be fearless. A lot of times when we're trying to command some sort of respect, we're trying to get in with someone, we try to be very flexible. It's good to be flexible to some extent, but don't ever bend over backwards for someone else. Don't shift the way you think or your belief system because you're just trying to accommodate someone, and that goes totally against the way you are. Don't be nasty about it. Don't be the kind of person that'll steamroll or steamroll right over that person. Make sure you listen. Listen to those around you, but make sure that doesn't change the way that you think, your stance. Be assertive about your stance, but be logical. Now, we're all experts in a certain thing. That's my second point. So when you're an expert in something, it's easier to be chatty about it. It's easier to generate conversation points on that, on your own knowledge and your own experiences. That doesn't necessarily mean all the time that you're right, or that there might not be other arguments out there that could apply to strengthen yours. When you're more on the shy kind of side of things, when I was in that situation, I tended to be much more observant of the world. I listened to what people had to say, and I would start developing thoughts about those ideas. And sometimes I'd kind of go home, or once the conversation is over, I would think to myself, gee, I really should have used that, or I could have said something to start up a conversation that way. So when you're more on the shy side, absorb the knowledge. Think about what's being said, and think about what you can do to get in with a person, to be able to start a conversation with them and share your point of view. And in the long run, when you start doing things like that, people will start coming to you and value your opinion because you're a person who will be able to share that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be out there and chat up the whole world, But, it's like when they say pick your battles. Look at which conversations matter to you the most, which conversations will impact your life, and which ones you could just avoid, that it really doesn't bring anything to you. When we look at conversations and people around us, we want to enhance our own lives. We want to enhance our status at work. We want to attract better people to have romantic relationships with. And we want to build a positive network of friends. So make sure that when you're building that network, you're being chatty, you're sharing your expertise. Make sure it's in the situations that benefit you, and that will bring you confidence. You'll see that people will start reacting to you in a different way. Instead of being passive on the side or saying things that aren't relevant, people will start looking at you in a different way and coming to you for your expertise and your experience. The third thing I would say is get things done, but also monitor what you're doing. Monitor your progress. Make sure that there's something that keeps you accountable. It's something we do a lot in coaching because confidence is built on accomplishments. And accomplishments can be little things in your life. If you struggle with like a greater project, break it down into elements that you can check off on your list and say, I did this on Tuesday, I did this on Monday, and unfortunately I wasn't able to get this done on Thursday. So you have the ability to be able to track it and say, okay, I wasn't able to do this because XYZ, but I will do it next week when I have time for it. And XYZ has to be done before I get there. So that kind of stuff. By being able to track your progress, you'll be able as well to feel happy about having gotten something done. And it's something that you can even share. You can tell people like, look, this was really challenging. I got it done. Look at me. I'm awesome. I'm getting, you're on track. And nothing gives more confidence than feeling that you're living up to your purpose. You're doing what you got to do. Reward yourself as well when you've completed something. Especially, when you're working on something you might not really be feeling. Sometimes we got to do stuff we don't like to do. But getting it done deserves a reward, and even more, your own recognition of having done something. If you've got a good support group, go out and celebrate with them. Now, the fourth element that I find is really important in building confidence is exercise. Now, you don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be training track and field. You don't have to be a pro athlete. What I do myself is first thing in the morning, I get up at 6, and at the most, at 6:05, I'm already out the door. I'm out the door because I know I have that block of time where nobody will bother me, nobody will be sending me emails, and if they do, they can wait. And if they have any phone calls, that can also wait. I'm going to go for a long walk and then come back, and you really feel it once you get in the groove. Now, you don't have to do this at 6 in the morning, but you have to find a block of time where people will know that, they have to leave a message or an email, and you'll get back to them at some point. You have to remember that you matter, and you have to remember that your health and your mental well-being matters. Now, by doing any kind of exercise, just like a simple walk, going out on a bike ride, or even taking your bike to work, it puts you in a different mindset already. You're burning a lot of the excess energy that you really don't need. This excess energy builds a nervousness, it builds a sense of anxiety, and that can be overwhelming once you start working or once you start doing what you got to do throughout the day. When you're approaching things from that anxious state of mind, it's already setting you back in what you're going to deliver. Work-wise, you won't be as focused. You'll just be focused on getting this damn thing done and out the door. And when you put that kind of energy, it reflects. People can feel it. People can see it. And people will react to what you look like in that sense of stress. People will notice it. If you're the happy-go-lucky guy, that'll start to fade. And you can't let that happen. You always got to be centered on you. And you always got to be centered on what makes you feel good about yourself. So, exercise is great for managing that stress, and it's also good for keeping the depression at bay. Don't forget, this is part of how you reward yourself. It's part of how you reward your overall well being, and it's part of breeding that confident person that you can be, that people will see and gravitate towards. And the last note, my tip number 5, is probably something that you'd say it's obvious, but a lot of times we don't really think about it. And it has to do with doing more things that make you happy. Life is about a massive project. You have so many different elements happening. You might be responsible for someone in your family that can't take care of themselves. You might have a whole bunch of children, and that really is a job on its own, on top of your 9 to 5 job. Maybe you have a 9 to 5 job, but you also have to have a 5 to 9 job. I mean, unfortunately, this is kind of the world we live in. But you always have to remember that you also need your quality of life. Without having the quality of life, you're just a machine. And at the end of the day, that takes a toll on your mental and physical health. So make sure that even when you're busy, you have time for yourself. Treat yourself like you're dating yourself. If you start forgetting about yourself, then you won't be able to have a complete relationship. You won't be able to exude that positive, confident person you are. And people will feed off of that, will see it. There's a great technique. It's a mindfulness thing or a yoga thing. But years ago, I used to go to this yoga thing outside, and they'd force you always to take your shoes and socks off and then walk on the grass. They call it getting grounded. Now, you might not be a person to do that kind of thing. You might be a person who would appreciate doing that kind of thing. But the main idea is get outside, breathe fresh air, take it all in. Whether it's, again, going for a bike ride, a quick walk, going to meet some friends and hang out in a backyard or in a patio, in a public park, have a picnic. Get outside and get connected. And when you get outside and whether it's connected to Mother Earth or connected to the outside, you manage to disconnect from the rest of the world. You're no longer in the wavelength and feeding the energy of the tasks you have to do and the stuff that eats you up. And when you're recharged, you get a lot more energy to tackle things that you were working on from a different perspective. You might have thought of a solution once you sit back down. And it's something that can be as easy as you're in the office, go out for a walk at lunch, take a really long walk, and then come back and approach it in a different light. But make sure you got time for constructive hobbies, whether what you like to do is gardening, play the guitar. I would say more than anything, stay away from anything electronic. Electronics put you in a passive state of mind. You're just sitting there absorbing information that really isn't doing much for you. You might get a giggle or two if you like a comedy or something like that. Stay away from social media. Social media basically doesn't give you a break. And a lot of times, now I got once some really good advice when I was younger, and it was when, Facebook was the whole thing. Now you've got Facebook, you got Instagram, you got TikTok, the list goes on. Now, if you're truly having a great time in your life, you don't have time to be on the phone texting someone, oh, check this out, or whatever, or sending pictures or updating, oh, look at this great food. You take the time later on and you do your homework on that side. It might not be as spontaneous, but we all often forget to enjoy the moment. And those little things are what life's all about. They're the stories you'll share with people when you see them, or you'll see a friend and say, hey, the other day I was out for a walk and I met this really awesome girl who was out for a jog, and whatever, that kind of stuff. So I throw in a couple more bonuses to see if you guys want to try this out. I find A lot of times this is stuff that we approach in coaching. Now, one of the bonuses I would say is it kind of goes on the hand of getting things done and monitoring your progress. Start building a roadmap for yourself. Think of what you want to do. Think of where you want to be. Do you need to take some courses to prepare to be a lawyer or a teacher? Upgrade some skills because you want to be a better writer. Whatever it is that you have in your mind. Maybe you're thinking about the job you've had for so many years and how much it's become a routine that you want to become an entrepreneur, start your own business. All these things have requirements to them, and they're not something that myself as a business builder, I guess the first few times when I started being a consultant, I guess the hardest thing for me was not realizing that it'll take time to build a business. It's not something that will happen from one day to the next, especially when you don't have people in the market that are able to start being your clients. It'll require maybe a bit more work on the marketing side or on something else. And this stuff is just fantastic because a lot of times when you're in an office or when you're in a certain job, you'll be boxed in, and most of what you'll learn is tied to that position. You won't be able to take it anywhere else, or if you go somewhere else, you'll be doing exactly the same thing but wearing a different hat. So these are all opportunities for you to start looking at, how do I build my roadmap? How do I get to where I want to be? What am I doing every week, every month? And check in to adapt that roadmap and maybe see, well, you know what? I wanted to start my business as a coach, but instead I realized I'm a better writer. Or instead of that, I realized, you know what, I'm a really good handy person. I should start my own business and go fix stuff around the neighborhood. There's a huge demand for your skill. You just need to be able to find where it applies and how you're going to get there. You can also be looking at how to have more successful relationships, and that may require personal growth. It may be required to change things that you used to do in the past that just don't work. So you can take that time and start building for your success, and that will breed confidence. Once you realize you're on track, you're getting stuff done, you may realize that there may be challenges ahead too that you didn't expect. And sometimes things will get worse before they get better. But if you're working on your purpose, you're centered on what you got to do, you'll get there and you'll feel it, and people around you will see it too. The last point I'm going to put in is something that we often say, dress to impress. Now, I'm not saying you got to doll up, wear the nicest dress you have and pearls and all that other stuff to go out on a date. If you're a man, I'm not saying you got to wear your best suit to go to work every single day. What I'm saying is that when we're at home, we're in our safe place, we're in our comfort zone. And a lot of people walk around their homes in their underwear, but you can't really do that in public. If you can, you might get attention for the wrong reasons, but you'll still get attention. So it could be a win-win. Now, when say for example, you're going out on a date. Now, if you show up in a sweaty t-shirt, torn pants, you might be trying to make a fashion statement, but the other person may not appreciate it. They'll appreciate when you put in your best effort for your own presentation. And you'll feel it too. You'll be in a place where you feel like, you've dressed to impress yourself, and you appreciate yourself, you value how you look, and others will see that you have that sense of confidence tied in with a little bit of self-respect. It's something that you want others to appreciate you for who you are and the best version of yourself. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got was from my grandfather. My grandfather had said, when you're out on a date or when you're out doing your life as a whole, always dress as if you're going to meet the love of your life. And I think that's priceless advice. You're always going to be in a situation where you're exuding a sense of confidence because you take pride in how you look, and you never know what's going to happen. Once you're confident and you're chatting with people, you're making new connections, It's things happen organically. It's almost effortless. It's easy once you get there, but you got to realize, like everything in life, you've got to put the hard work in it if you want to improve who you are. Now, thanks for tuning in. If there's anything else that you'd like us to answer, if there's something that you'd like us to tackle on another video, feel free to email us at info@cedardalecommunications.com. And until next video, hope you guys are doing well and take care of yourselves. Cheers.